Everyone thinks stoicism is about emotionless resolve. They're catastrophically wrong. It isn't about suppressing feeling, it's about discerning what you can control and what you can't. And few figures in history embodied this brutal truth more profoundly than Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor who faced a trifecta of existential threats: a devastating pandemic, relentless wars, and profound personal loss. His reign was a constant, silent battle. Imagine being the most powerful man in the world, yet feeling utterly powerless against an invisible enemy. The year is 165 AD. Roman legions, returning from a victorious campaign in Parthia, brought back more than just spoils of war. They carried a plague, one that would sweep across the empire, decimating populations and challenging the very fabric of Roman society. This wasn't just a localized outbreak, it was a cataclysm. Historians estimate the Antonine Plague, possibly smallpox or measles, killed millions, perhaps up to 10% of the entire empire's population. Rome, a city of over 1 million, became a ghost town. The economic, social, and psychological toll was immense. Marcus, from his imperial palace, watched his world unravel. Yet in his private writings, later compiled as meditations, we find no trace of panic or despair. Instead, a quiet, almost unsettling acceptance. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This wasn't a platitude. It was his operating manual in the face of unimaginable chaos. While the plague raged, Marcus also grappled with relentless frontier wars. Germanic tribes, sensing Roman weakness, launched repeated incursions across the Danube. He spent much of his reign on campaign, far from the comforts of Rome, enduring harsh conditions and constant threat. The burden of empire was literal, physical, and relentless. He didn't delegate these wars, he led them. For years, he lived in military camps, sharing the hardships of his soldiers, even as the plague continued its grim work back home. This wasn't the image of an emperor detached from reality. This was a man fully immersed in the brutal demands of his duty, day after day. And then the personal losses. He lost multiple children, including his beloved son, Annius Verus, at a young age. His co-emperor, Lucius Verus, died during the plague, possibly from the illness itself. The man who urged himself to accept fate was not immune to its sharpest edges. Grief was a constant companion. Yet even in his deepest sorrow, his meditations reveal a steadfast commitment to virtue. He wrote, "A man's worth is no greater than the worth of his ambitions." His ambition wasn't wealth or power, but to live according to reason, to serve the common good, even when the common good felt like a distant, impossible dream. So how did he do it? How did he maintain his composure and leadership amidst such a maelstrom? His Stoic practice was his anchor. He constantly reminded himself of the impermanence of all things, the futility of fear, and the power of his own judgment. He practiced negative visualization, contemplating the worst-case scenarios not to dwell on them, but to inoculate himself against their shock. He'd consider the loss of loved ones, the defeat in battle, the collapse of order. By mentally rehearsing these events, he stripped them of some of their terror. He embraced the dichotomy of control, distinguishing between what he could influence, his thoughts, actions, reactions, and what he couldn't, the plague, the barbarians, the fickle hand of fate. His focus was always on his inner citadel, the one place no external force could breach. Marcus Aurelius didn't wish for an easier life, he wished to be stronger. He didn't rail against the injustice of his circumstances. Instead, he channeled his energy into what he could change: his perspective, his duty, his character. This wasn't a passive acceptance, but an active, deliberate choice. His meditations weren't meant for publication. They were personal notes, philosophical exercises, a daily conversation with himself designed to fortify his mind against the onslaught of reality. They reveal a man wrestling with profound questions, a man striving for virtue amidst immense pressure. The emperor understood that true power lay not in his legions or his title, but in his ability to maintain inner tranquility, to act with justice and wisdom, no matter the external storm. His reign, often depicted as a golden age, was, in reality, a crucible. He died in 180 AD, likely from the plague, just as the wars were finally winding down. He met his end not in glorious battle, but perhaps quietly, another victim of the invisible enemy that had stalked his reign. His final words, if tradition holds true, were of resignation and duty. What can we learn from Marcus? That stoicism isn't about being unfeeling. It's about feeling deeply, acknowledging pain, but refusing to let it derail your purpose. It's about finding strength precisely when the world outside offers nothing but uncertainty and despair. His silent battle reminds us that even the most powerful among us are subject to life's random cruelties. But crucially, it also shows us that our response to those cruelties is entirely within our domain. We can choose resilience, we can choose virtue, we can choose wisdom. In a world often overwhelming, Marcus Aurelius offers not an escape, but a roadmap. A way to navigate the pandemics, the personal losses, the relentless pressures of our own lives, not by wishing them away, but by fortifying the mind against them. His legacy isn't just one of imperial rule, but of profound inner strength. A quiet testament to the enduring power of philosophy, not as an academic pursuit, but as a practical guide for living well, even when life is at its most brutal. Subscribe for more deep dives into ancient wisdom and practical philosophy for modern challenges.